Alright folks, welcome to the Besides the Norm podcast. I'm Scuba, we've got Craig here. You good?
Quality, man.
Excellent. A bit of a different format this time. We've not got somebody in the studio. We've kind of returned to the kind of Skype format, so it could get a bit awkward at times. That's what happens on Skype, unfortunately. But today we've got Michael Musgrave, Mike Musso from W3L Wrestling in Kirkcaldy. How are you doing, man?
I'm good.
Excellent. So we wanted to get you on. I know a little bit about wrestling. I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid, basically.
I know a little bit as well. We'll be fine.
Well, that's it. I've been watching it kind of more in the past 3 years, quite intensely. So I know a bit about wrestling and stuff like that, but I'm not too sure as much of the kind of local scene as far as it goes, sort of thing. The kind of Fife scene of wrestling.
Okay.
So that's basically my kind of general knowledge of that thing. So you've been. So what made you get into wrestling, Mike?
Oh God, we're talking a while back now. I think ever since I was a young boy, it was kind of what I kind of fixated on and wanted to do. We could probably do an entire podcast about my journey to get into wrestling. I'll try not bore anybody. But I started, I think, about 14, 15, turning up to local shows, kind of pestering the guys to train me, that type of thing. And eventually they kind of let me in, so to speak. I would pitch in, building the ring, that kind of thing, get a bit of training. I then went on to train with a lot of the sort of old British guys that were on the circuit back when wrestling in this country used to be on television. From there, I trained with Jake the Snake Roberts. Nice. I then went to Canada for a year. And by the time I came back, I continued wrestling, got involved in the business side, and kind of have been doing it and pushing forward ever since.
So you started sort of training out with Scotland, sort of thing?
Yeah, there wasn't any. I mean, now we've got training schools like we've got a W3L Action Academy. And there's another, I think 3 or 4 training schools in Scotland. But back in the early 2000s, when I started, there was no way of getting. There was no clear path to get into the wrestling business, and I was probably one of the last people to kind of come through during that time. Mm-hmm. Now you can Google wrestling school and you find your local one, and believe it or not, I used to take an overnight bus to go down and train in London, and before then, when I was doing my training sort of on the road at these tours, I would get, at 15, 16 years old, I'd get a list of towns and dates, and obviously I didn't have a car at that point, and I would have to make my way to these towns because that was the only way I could get my foot in the door and get involved. Whereas now you kind of get people emailing us from Dunfermline complaining that there isn't a school there, and they don't want to travel 20 minutes up the road to Kirkcaldy. So it's kind of a bit of a turnaround in how easy it is to get involved in the business. These poor people are hard done by if they have to travel for half an hour. I was taking overnight coach journeys down to London to go down and train there for weekends and stuff like that. Sleeping at train stations, I've done that before as well. So it's right from the offset is a pretty bizarre world. It's kind of like being in the circus, but with less custard pies.
Well, this is kind of one of the common threads as well. Like, was ICW started at that time? No.
No, God, no.
2006 it started.
2006, right? So there was pretty much zero wrestling happening in Scotland at that time when you started.
Yeah, there was nothing. There was the tours that I was on or training at and had my first few matches on. They were ran by a gentleman by the name of Klondike Jake, who was an old World of Sport name. He's still about. I don't think he's actively running events anymore, but I saw him a few years ago at one of the sort of reunion things that get held around the country. And he was running his shows, and they had a few sort of British names on it, and we were going through a phase, the people that were running wrestling at the time, of capitalising on the popularity of American wrestling by having what we call tribute acts, which earned poor Jake the nickname Jake the Fake, because he would have he would have the original Undertaker, they called him, because he portrayed the Undertaker as he was when he first appeared with the black hat,
Right.
the jacket and the stuff. And I can't remember what I do actually have a memory of being in, of all places, Dunoon, which you had to get a ferry to, and the guys were trying to teach somebody to do Stone Cold Steve Austin's entrance. Jesus. And they were trying to tell him, you've got to swagger your shoulders more and do. It's funny, nobody asked me, but at 16 years old at the time, I would probably have been the best placed person to describe Steve Austin's mannerisms. But I just sat and watched. But that was just what was going on then. There wasn't any. People use the term indie. There wasn't any kind of independent wrestling scene really in this country at the time.
I actually remember somebody talking about that, because they were talking about it was advertised as kind of American style wrestling and stuff like that, and it was, I think there was, like, as you were mentioning, Stone Cold, Undertaker and all that stuff. One of my friends actually went to it. I'm sure it was at there was something in the Rothes Halls years ago. I'm sure it must have been about 2000, because I was at high school at the time. So
yeah, sounds right. It was maybe W3L runs the Rothes Halls now, but I wrestled at the Rothes Halls back in 2006, maybe 2007 for Orig Williams. So I know he was an old Welsh promoter, sadly passed away a few years ago. He did a lot of television work, especially in Wales. They had a show, I think it was called Wrestlo, which I'm assuming is Welsh for wrestling. But he was running the Rothes Halls, and I'm pretty sure a few other promoters were in there before them. I think everybody's been there at some point leading up to us finally moving into the venue.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of companies were you working for at that point then?
God, I'm trying to think back to what was around. The start for me was doing these tours for Jake. Yep. There was a couple of independent odd shows that would happen. I went down in England to England a few times.
Was there no things at caravan parks and stuff like that as well that you were able to get involved with us?
Yeah, you're talking about the holiday camp circuit.
Stuff.
Yeah, I was aware of that then. I didn't actually get involved in the camps until later on, about 5 years into me starting wrestling. I mean, it's a fantastic way to learn. Because you're wrestling, several times a day. And I didn't actually get involved in that until W3L spent a few years with a few of the camps. But yeah, that's another way. That's another mainstay of the British wrestling circuit is the old holiday camps, and they're still going. They're still going today. Yeah,
definitely. So
I can't remember much of the holiday parks. We spent a lot of time in.
Do you remember going in? It was a big bald guy with a goatee, and they sent out a guy dressed as a Power Ranger. I'm sure it was the White Power Ranger. Do you remember
Maybe
that?
I just been starstruck by just seeing the White Ranger at that point, so I might have just.
This sounds right. This sounds right. I can believe that happened.
Yeah, I think it was mainly obviously the Power Rangers were huge at the time, so obviously trying to get the kids involved that was kind of one of the big things, and that makes sense, really.
See, I'm cynical, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm considered a cynical person, but I would imagine that there would be purists, like wrestling purists, who would moan about this kind of stuff. Does that not happen?
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, you watch. You watch what's happening in WWE right now, and you've got purists, as you put it, that will really highly rate certain guys, and you have the loudest portion of the audience, the kids and the sort of mainstream people that aren't purists, that will cheer John Cena and cheer. I know Goldberg came back the other week, another big name for the past. But
I was sitting watching that. It was pretty cool.
Even though he's from the past, I saw the clip on YouTube. He's still got a massive reaction. And these guys that the purists might sort of say should be the centre of attention on their TV show don't get a tenth of that reaction. So I'm not at war with the purists, as you put it, but I take everything that a wrestling purist says to me with a big pinch of salt. I think with what was going on with wrestling Power Rangers and stuff like that, you have to just think of it as it's a business at the end of the day. you're running live events or you've got a television product, you need to make money. If you're not making money, you're not in business. Obviously certain guys like myself, I have a lot of passion for professional wrestling, but I think if you have passion for it, you've got to respect it enough to realize that for there to be wrestling needs to be something that people have an interest in and something that can survive financially in a capitalist society. You've got to make money. So after British wrestling was taken off television, I've had this conversation with some of the guys that were around then, saying to them, what could we have done at that point to protect the British wrestling industry and give it its own identity? Because a lot of people I don't want to make out like the sort of old guard would whinge about what's become of wrestling, because that's not necessarily the case. But there's a big sense of pride in what British wrestling used to be, and there has to be an element of responsibility that when it got taken off TV, the best I can see and that I've been able to put together is, instead of trying to survive on its own merits, we transitioned into milking the last of the sort of Big Daddy stuff while it was still fresh in everyone's minds, but then latching onto the American product, and then you've got your Undertaker turning up and your fake Steve Austin and stuff like that. So, and it's because that's what the market was for. I don't think any parent that took their kids to that show and paid £8 for a ticket versus 15 years ago or 20 years ago, I don't know what it would have been, 35 for WWE or something, thought they were seeing the legitimate Mankind or the legitimate Rock or whoever, but their kids were going to love it, and that if that's where the money was, that's the direction we went in. So there's a reason for the way everything's presented.
Definitely, man, definitely. So what made you kind of then transition into kind of running your own company?
There was nothing on the east coast of Scotland. By the time we started W3L, there was a couple of promotions in the west of the country, but there was nothing in the east. The group that I'd been working with weren't coming up as frequently. In my year out of the country, I'd kind of sort of become a little bit out the loop as well, and obviously I wanted to progress, and so what I did at that time, it made sense to try and organise some of my own events and bring in. And I've always been keen to get better, myself as a wrestler. So I would bring in people that I knew had a reputation and were, I could get better simply by being around. So it kind of served a dual purpose. One, there was no wrestling, so we needed to create wrestling events to build some kind of scene, if you like. And the other side of it was I wanted to get better. So, instead of traveling about, we kill two birds with one stone, bring them up here, and myself and the other guys that were coming up at the time could get better simply from getting in the ring with these more experienced guys. Mm-hmm. So that was the original thought behind or motivation, if you like, behind getting involved in the business side of pro wrestling.
Yeah, because I was sort of having a wee peek through the website a wee while ago, and it said you've had people in like a WWE NXT trainer Robbie Brookside, you've had like talent scouts for WWE, Impact Wrestling stars and stuff like that, and even sort of people from the world of sport and that as well. And that has got to be encouraging for a lot of the people that you're actually training as well.
Yeah, I mean they're going to be have access to these guys as well. I mean it's a different scene now. There's guys like myself that have now been around the wrestling business for 15 years or close to it, and if somebody new comes in, we can help them. But there's also the generation before us that I very much want to keep around. And if somebody's gone on to success, like you mentioned, some of the guys we've had in that have appeared for TNA or WWE, bring them in as well, because the more well travelled somebody is, and the more name recognition they have, the kids have maybe seen them on television and stuff like that. So we try and keep it a fairly a kind of vibrant kind of talent roster by bringing in these names, and it's good for the fans that are coming to see the show because they're seeing recognisable people, or people in terms of the older guys that have got slightly different styles. And obviously, it's amazing for everybody involved to have such a wide array of experience.
Mm-hmm. As me and Craig were talking yesterday, there seems to have been, just in the last few years, like a huge wrestling boom. It seems everybody seems to watch wrestling. There's a lot of people kind of, I would use kind of quotation marks, coming out as wrestling fans and stuff like that. It's been quite mad within the past few years for all this kind of stuff. Especially ICW is kind of helped with that as well. What's your thoughts on the kind of the scape it's caught right now?
The what? Sorry.
Sorry, I kind of worded that terribly. What's your thoughts on the wrestling boom in the last few years?
Oh, yeah, it doesn't really feel like a boom like we've kind of seen before. Things seem to be going steadily uphill. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Right.
I don't think wrestling's as popular as it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, for example, or back in the sort of Hogan era. It's certainly not as popular in this country as when the entire nation would stop to watch Big Daddy and Mick McManus and the likes. Everybody the whole country would be watching that kind of stuff. I think there's stats that say as many people watched it as they watched the FA Cup final and stuff like that. So that's when you talk about a boom period, I think you have to really put things into perspective. Yeah, wrestling's probably more popular than it was 5 or 6 years ago, and we should certainly be confident with that. But I think there's still a big way forward we can go with it. Hopefully we'll see it continue to grow in popularity. And the big news that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of is ITV have currently commissioned a pilot.
I was just about to ask you that as well. Perfect.
So I mean that could be, if it comes off, it could be huge. I did something for ITV in the summer, which I can't really speak about just yet because it's not been unveiled, so to speak. And I heard rumblings of it then, and now I know that they've got the plans in place to do this pilot.
What is this pilot?
You don't.
I think I've missed this.
It's for they're filming a studio wrestling show under the World of Sport brand, which was the name
I did hear about this. Aye.
Yeah. So if that ends up on ITV1 or whatever on a Saturday afternoon, that could be the final push that's needed to really make wrestling as popular as it's ever been in the country. It could be huge. So it's a very exciting time. But take everything with a pinch of salt until you see it happen. Until we see that on television, let's not throw all our eggs in that basket. It seems very, very promising. But I think when you're around any part of the sort of entertainment industry, if you like, you kind of become a little bit jaded about hearing, oh, this is happening, or we're filming this is going to end up being the next big thing. But this sounds great. This could be, if it comes off, it could really put a rocket on the popularity of professional wrestling in this country.
Did you say this is STV or ITV? Is it Scotland or is it a UK thing?
No, it's ITV. It's
national.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do you have sort of any inside knowledge? Do you know if any wrestlers that have spoken about sort of being part of the pilot or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, I know a few of the guys that have been announced. The guys that wrestle for W3L. Our former women's champion Viper has been announced for it.
Nice.
Excuse me. Both of the Coffey brothers, former W3L tag team champions, have also been announced for it, and a host of other names as well. So there's definitely going to be some good talent on display. It is a pilot, but let's see how it goes. It could be huge. So we're all very excited about it.
I remember Mum always speaking about the family sitting down. I think it was a Saturday night the wrestling was on, and so if this is the same thing, it could be pretty nostalgic for some older people as well.
Could be a great revival as well, and there's also the chance of bringing in sort of like a lot of the people that were huge in that time to sort of guide people along as well. So it's a fantastic idea.
It has to be updated, but I do think a nod to the past would be appropriate as well. But this is a one chance thing. If they get this right, it could be huge, but they could also get it wrong. So let's finger everything crossed, because it would be good for everybody that's involved in our industry if this comes off well.
Definitely. So you've sort of, with the company you've got right now, I originally thought that it was just kind of like you'd be doing sort of Scottish-based events and stuff like that, but you've actually been out with Scotland quite a few times, you were saying as well.
Yeah, we're. I don't like referring to us as a Scottish wrestling company anymore, because we're maybe not national in the sense that we've not been further south than Yorkshire, but we're certainly not a regional promotion. It would take, I think, something like 12 hours to drive from perhaps more actually, 12 hours to drive from our northernmost venue to our southernmost venue. So I think we have to give ourselves a bit of credit that we've kind of moved on from being like a localized touring group. Yeah, it's just about getting out and bringing our event and our wrestlers to as many towns as possible and building up that following.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk a wee bit about the hassles of kind of getting everybody to shows and stuff like that. Could you tell me for kind of a wee bit from kind of start to finish on the kind of travelling aspect? Because obviously,
I love the laugh.
Do you have to
already.
take the ring and stuff? Do you have to take the ring, or do you get one set up there for you?
No, we've got 2 rings.
Right.
In the summer, we can get quite busy with. We do lots of sort of summer events in parks and stuff like that. And we can quite often get double bookings, so that's why we've got the 2 rings. The logistics of getting an entire team of people from town to town can sometimes be an absolute nightmare, especially when things can go wrong. When things go right, one of our toughest trips is we do a tour up in the Highlands every year, and we typically would start on the Friday night. So we have to load the ring you obviously have to plan the travel. You're not going to have everybody take their own car and charge fuel expenses to the company. So that's a logistical thing, planning the cars and the travel. Then you've got a large Luton van, like a removal van, that we need to load all the equipment into, which is the wrestling ring, the entranceway, all our merchandise, PA system, and any other little odds and ends that we need to take along with us. So we'll meet at whatever time. Yeah, maybe. We'll meet at whatever time we need to get everything loaded and get to the venue in time. We typically set up in 2 hours. Our venues are booked for 2 hours before the event, because it would be great to have the luxury of more time. But again, thinking that this has got to be profitable for us to all continue being able to do it. Yeah. It's about trying to reduce costs. So we only have the venue booked for 2 hours before the doors open. So it's kind of a race against time to get everything set up. Our northern tour, we would maybe try. I think this year we started off in Ullapool. So our Action Academy, where we have the training school, is where the ring's stored. So we have to go from Kirkcaldy to Ullapool on the Friday, arrive in Ullapool for 4 o'clock to get into the venue. Set everything up, set the ring up, set the PA system up, the entranceway, get everything. We've maybe got other things coming up, so we put flyers on all the chairs, and there needs to be like a pre-show kind of with our production guys, the music, and we have which I'll make sure I give another mention to in due course. We have a weekly internet show called W3L Wrestling Showdown, so we film the large majority of our events for that. So that's got to all be organised. We did, so we do on this northern tour, we do Ullapool, then we get the entire team back to stay in accommodation in Inverness, because it's quite a central place. On the Saturday morning, I'm trying to think where we went to. Yeah, the Saturday morning, we got back to the accommodation at maybe 11:30 at night, something like that, up at 5 in the morning to get up to Wick, right up at the top of the country, for a 12 o'clock start. So we had to be in Wick for 10 a.m, which is about 3.5 hours drive, I think, from Inverness. From Wick, we've got an hour and a half between Wick and Elgin. So we would finish, if it's a 12 o'clock, 12:30 start, finish the event at 2:30, and we've got to be in Elgin to open the doors for 7 o'clock at night, and there's like 2 hours between the venues travel. I think on this particular trip we ended up going through, I want to say Nairn, but it might be another town, and it was like bumper to bumper traffic, stuck half an hour late, which when you're running in such a short time span, when you're doing a matinee and an evening, could be disastrous. So we arrive at the venue with nothing set up, and the venue hadn't even laid chairs out. All the chairs were like stacked up in the corner of the hall, and we've got our team of guys, and we've got to open the doors in 45 minutes. I think we were only 10 minutes late. But after that, back to Inverness, back to the accommodation, and then do a Sunday afternoon event in Dingwall, which luckily is right near Inverness. So the Sunday was a more easy shift. Take everything down after that event, get back to Kirkcaldy, and everyone just wants to go to bed, but we've got to unload all of the van and stuff. The amount of times we're actually okay now on the industrial estate that we're at, but previous buildings that that have housed our training school, we've often had the police turn up because we've been unloading the van at such an unsociable hour that people think there's some break-in going on. And of course the police are like, "What's going on here?" And we're like, "We're just unloading a wrestling ring." And they're like, "Yeah, that'll be right. Let's have a look at this." They come into our building and they see, whatever foam hands we've got left sitting in the corner and stuff like that. And they're like, "All right, enough it is. That's what they're doing." Okay. That's a typical time where things go well. This year alone, we have had the ring break the morning of an event. Luckily, it was local. We're based in Kirkcaldy. The event was in Dunfermline. The guys were taking the ring apart to load it in the van, and part of one of the welds fell off. Luckily, we had local knowledge, so somebody knew a welder. We got it welded, and again, we were running late, but we managed to get everything set up in time. Although I think with a weld, you're supposed to leave it for a while to sort of set.
I think so.
There was a worry that the thing was gonna go again, like somebody gets suplexed and the ring explodes. If it happened in the last match, that would be fine. It would be a spectacular finale to the event. But if it happened in the opener, we'd be in a bit of trouble. Luckily, the ring held up. I'm trying to think other things that have gone on. We had a double job at some point this year where we had 2 vans booked because both rings were going out. And this is one of my bugbears. There's so many ways now for people to contact each other. Phone, text message, email, Twitter, Facebook. I mean, there's loads of people that I just speak to on Facebook. That's become a normal thing. I lost all my. I didn't have internet signal when we were doing a job. It was just outside Inverness somewhere, and I needed to get in touch with people. And I realised that I didn't have anybody's phone numbers that I needed to contact because I speak to them all through Facebook. We're speaking now on Skype.
Exactly.
The van company said, "Oh, I sent you a WhatsApp message and you didn't get back to me, so I thought that you weren't needing the van anymore." So apparently that's how we do business now, WhatsApp. So the morning of the evening before, when all other the van hire company that we use is absolutely phenomenal. They bend over backwards to try and help us. So I'm telling this as a funny story, but the guys are really, really good. Minus this one time, and it was. You could argue it was my fault for not checking my WhatsApp, but that became our way of communication. So I find out the night before that we don't have a van, and there's no way we can do what we need to do with one van. There's no way of getting the ring from A to B, getting back to get the other ring. It wasn't an option. So I wake up in the morning, panic, trying to get this Luton van, and because of all the gala days and stuff. The large Luton vans really are quite hard to come by in the summer. Mm-hmm. So we found one in Dundee, but the problem is I told our drivers, who ironically were both from Dundee, just get here. I'm still on the phone trying to work it out. but get here and then at least you're here. And then when they got here, I told them that they were having to go back to Dundee to pick up the other van. Turns out so the guy goes back to Dundee to pick up the other van. We then find out that he doesn't have the paperwork required
Fucking hell.
to pick up the van. So we're already racing against the clock. So I then have to phone the other team and speak to the other driver, because I realised that someone else on that team was also capable of driving the van. So I had to say, right, you're not driving that van anymore. Get somebody to drop you off. I can't remember where it was, but somewhere. You're going back to Dundee to pick up another van. And it's just mad. It was like juggling people from place to place. And end of the story is I think we were about 20 minutes late opening the doors in Edinburgh, and pretty damn stressed. But we got through it. Other things go wrong, like the PA system blew up. Which was a bit worrying because the girl that was operating it was pregnant at the time. Thankfully, it didn't result in early labour.
That could have been a hell of a
it could have been worse. So in the space of about 6 weeks, it was actually the ring broke, the PA system broke. I'm sure something else broke. I was telling one of the guys about it, and he was like, "So basically, you're starting from scratch." And I was like, "Yeah, I suppose so." We've got a bunch of things fixed and new equipment this year, but it's just crazy the situations we find ourselves in, and we always the good thing about it is we always manage to pull through, and you have to be able to just when you're on the road pulling off these events, you've got a commitment to be there and make sure that these guys that have paid for tickets are going to see the event that they paid for. You just have to have this attitude of, right, how can we make this work? If you worry too much about the things that have gone wrong, you're never going to find the solution. So that's kind of how I am in life. When things go wrong, I'm like, right, how are we going to move forward? What are we going to do to fix this? And luckily, that's kind of got me so far. It's done me well up to now. But mad.
I will never ever complain again about having to DJ and having to park everything up at the end of the day, because wow, you just go through a hell of a lot of shit, man.
I was just going to say about how much.
I've just remembered another one. This is classic. Albert Hall, Stirling this year. Really nice venue, one of my favourite places. We arrive at their security barrier. They've got a security barrier to go into the sort of backstage kind of entrance to the venue. So the van driver turns gets out the van, turns the engine off, gets out the van, pushes the button, they open the buzzer, gets back in the van, goes to turn the van on, nothing. No power. Now, we're at the venue, so you're thinking this isn't going to be a disaster. We're just going to have to carry shit a bit further, you know? Problem is, there's a tail lift. The tail lift is blocking because the tail lift is up and folded up at the back of the van, it's blocking us from being able to get in the van. So, and I've already told you we've only got a 2 hour turnaround, so we're having to phone around. We're getting people with jump leads, and nothing we can do to get this van to start. It ends up that the people are queuing outside, and we still haven't even got into our van. And there's maybe like 250 tickets sold for this event, and with the ring's there, we just can't get to it. So in a mad panic, we're like, right, we're just going to have to break in. So we managed to sort of force the back of the van open, or I can't remember how exactly we got it open, but we got it open, but the tail lift's still there. So then we've got a boy standing on someone else's shoulders to climb over the tail lift and get into the back of the van, and then slide everything out the sort of 2 foot space that remained, above the tail lift and the top of the van. Get everything out that way. The AA or whoever it was finally turns up, gets the van going. We get everything back in the van. The driver drops it off wherever it's going, and we're going to get a new van in the morning because we were told this is probably going to happen again. There's something wrong with the engine, so be mindful of that on your way back. So the driver parks the van, knowing that we're going to be getting a new van in the morning. And bless him, I'm not going to mention his name. He is one of the hardest working people we've got on our team. But he parked the van with the back of the van against a wall. Oh, so in the morning, when we turn up to switch the van, we can't get anything out the back. The van's dead, and we're late again. We've got the exact same problem that we had the night before, because instead of going nose first leaving the back of the van accessible, he backed the van up. It's just crazy.
I feel horrible laughing, but as at these points later on, you're able to kind of find it funny. But fuck me,
I think we kind of just laughed at the time because it's like, what else can you do? You're either going to laugh or cry, right?
At that point, you're stuck for options.
We've got all these wrestlers standing at the side of the road waiting to transfer the stuff from van to van, and that became another hour of messing about before we got that one fixed. But just another, I say quite often, another day in the circus.
Oh yeah, because you're not going through that every time. These are just kind of random moments at certain points. Every
story I've told you so far is from this year.
Yeah. Christ.
In fairness, I think we've had an unlucky year for stuff like that happening.
Well, I was just going to say...
What's the worst we've had to deal with, Stephen?
The worst?
Got a band not turning up to the studio.
Basically, aye, that's it. That's pretty much it. So I'm never going to complain ever again. Life. Never ever going to complain. One thing I wanted to talk to you about as well on the website was the birthday parties. This is quite an interesting idea because you're able to kind of get a bunch of kids in and sort of give them sort of memorabilia and give them a kind of quite unique party. Have you done a few of these so far?
Yeah, they're quite popular. They're obviously you're getting a team of wrestlers in, so they're not. Yeah. We can't offer them they're not exactly cheap. Yeah. And it's not because we're greedy, it's because you're talking about live entertainment for a kid's birthday party. You hire a magician, you're getting one guy in his car, with his equipment in the car, and it's one guy needing to be paid for one job. For us, you're talking, our packages are like, 3-man teams if it's just one match, and, so 3 people need to be paid. And then as you go up the ladder, we've got like an 8-man package, and, the kids are really lucky, when the parents, they're lucky that they've got the opportunity for it, because there's certainly nothing like that when I was a kid, and I would have loved it.
Definitely.
But, it is an investment for the parents, but I think it is worth it. We certainly give quality because the looks on the kids' faces when they're there with their friends, it's their birthday and there's a live wrestling match happening in front of them. Mm-hmm. It's really rewarding to really make. I think we give them a birthday they'll never forget.
So what happens? Do they come to you, or do you like go into the back garden like a?
We've travelled. We've never done it in a back garden because I think you'd be risking rain and stuff like that. And
I suppose
again, it's a business. If it rains, it's not our fault. That's built for any outdoor events. It's kind of built into our agreement. If you cancel within X amount of time, there's this charge, and if you cancel on the day due to poor weather, and we've left and we're there, everybody needs to be paid. The wrestlers could have been working somewhere else, had maybe turned down jobs. So it's far too high a risk, in my opinion, to hold a birthday party outside because it would ruin the kid's birthday. But we have travelled to, people would book like their local community centre and stuff like that. But most of it is them coming to us. We can fit 30 people comfortably in our unit, so it's a kind of intimate sort of setting. We play some party games with the kids. They get to jump in the ring and get their picture taken with the wrestlers. Of course, there's matches that they see as well, and it's a really sort of fun experience. All our feedback from them have been largely, positive. The reviews we've had are excellent for the experiences the kids have had at these birthday parties.
Well, that's it. Because sorry, when you go.
I'm just saying, I wish something like that existed when I was a bear. That sounds absolutely amazing.
Definitely, because I've been DJing for about 10 years now, and we've come across like magicians and like kind of all that kind of stuff, and like bouncy castles and all that kind of stuff. But an actual wrestling company just that's fucking cool as fuck, man. Love that idea.
Totally.
Yeah, it's mad for the kids that they get to have that, and a lot of them, especially because it's based locally, and we do have quite a few venues around this area. A lot of the kids have seen our shows before, so not only are they seeing just a wrestling event, they're seeing guys that they're familiar with because they've come to our shows and enjoyed our shows, and it's really good. There's quite although we travel about here, there, and everywhere. It's certainly good in some of the areas that we've been in for a long period of time that we do have more of a following. They're not just coming to see wrestling, they're coming to see W3L, they're coming to see this guy and this guy, and all of a sudden their birthday parties there, and they're seeing some of their favourite wrestlers wrestling at their birthday party. It's really rewarding for us to be able to offer that service. We've actually we were approached recently by the UK Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Nice.
We've got a party lined up for a kid that's recently gone through some heart surgery and stuff like that. So we're all looking forward to that. We'll put in a special effort to obviously make he's had the poor little guy's had a tough time of things. We want to give him a birthday to remember. But just having the facility through what we do to be able to make kids forget their troubles and make them basically see kind of superheroes coming to life in front of them, if you like. Mm-hmm. It's such a rewarding experience to see the kids' faces and stuff.
Definitely, it's a fucking fantastic thing, man. I totally love that whole idea. We've only got a few minutes left for you. I was going to say, what's happening on December 28th for
our next W3L live event. It gets kind of quiet about Christmas time. Most people would spend, most people when they're at work would have the holidays, for Christmas and stuff. We're not doing that. We're going to be in Pettycur Bay Holiday Park on the Wednesday in between Christmas and New Year, which I think is the 28th. Pettycur Bay, it's a 7 o'clock start. We'll be filming matches for W3L Wrestling Showdown. It's going to be the W3L Heavyweight Championship will be on the line. Nathan Reynolds, the W3L champion, will be there. I'll be there. W3L Women's Champion Sarah will be there. We've got Joe Coffey is going to be at the event, so it's going to be a good lineup of wrestlers. We were at Pettycur Bay last Christmas. Everybody had a great time. It was actually we've done Christmas events for quite a while, but last year was the first time we'd been to Pettycur for Christmas, and it was our biggest attendance yet at Pettycur. It wasn't far off being sold out, so it was really good to see that people wanted to. What better way to spend Christmas than with the W3L, eh?
Definitely. Are you going to be back quite soon at the is it the Regent in Leven or the Keynote or something like that?
It's been, I've not spoken to the new owners, but from what I understand, it's been refurbished to the point that there's the seating is too constrictive for what we need. Because that was a nice little venue. When it shut down from the previous owners, we moved back into a venue we'd used before, which is Buckhaven Community Centre. I personally loved the atmosphere at the cinema, but the atmosphere at Buckhaven's been really good. The attendance has been exactly the same. I think everybody that used to go to the Regent now just comes to the Buckhaven Community Centre. And from a business point of view, our deal's better with them. So I think even if the cinema... I'm not saying never say never. We consider all venues and all offers, whatever works best. And it was a nice looking place. Wrestling in a cinema as well was quite a unique experience. So you never know. We might be back there, but we'll certainly be back at Buckhaven Community Centre, which is just 5 minutes along the road. Stage. All our dates are always on w3lwrestling.com. I think websites now are more just like a storefront, like a shop window for everything else. And that's what our website is. It's got links to our YouTube channel, which is the W3L network. It's got links to our Facebook, our Twitter. So if you want to keep up to date with all our dates and stuff like that, social media is certainly the best way of staying current with everything. And all of our links are on our website, w3lwrestling.com. I want to talk about the W3L network a little bit. It's been going now for almost 2 years. We have a weekly wrestling show called W3L Wrestling Showdown. All the matches that you see on there are from our live events up and down the country. You'll see championship matches. You'll see all the top names. Costs nothing to hit the subscribe button. Some people watch it every week. Others wait for their favourite wrestlers to appear on it and check out odd matches here and there. If you're bored, you can go back and watch weeks that you've missed. It's become an archive, really, of the past 2 years of everything that we've done. So please, if you're a wrestling fan, please check out w3lnetwork.com. Saves you having to search through YouTube. If you go to w3lnetwork.com, it'll take you straight to our YouTube page. Hit the subscribe button, and you can see what we're up to every week.
Fantastic, Mike. You're a born salesman. Fantastic. Right, well, much appreciated, man. Thanks for coming on.
Excellent, no problem. Pleasure talking to you guys.
Excellent, man. Excellent.